Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and tonight we come to the last movie that stars/features the late legendary Gene Hackman, a part of Gene Hackman Movie Week, in memory/in tribute of Gene Hackman. You know the drill. Yes, and, yeah, I mean, look, even though this was not a great last movie for Gene Hackman, still, it seems fitting and necessary for me to review this and, being a part of Gene Hackman Movie Week. You know what I mean? Just, yeah, come on. It only seems fair, But I gotta say, I actually, didn't have a problem with this movie. I won't lie, because, I'm pretty sure you guys know by now, how honest I am with certain movies like this one. Yeah. Again, not the best last film for Gene Hackman's, but the thing is, he wasn't the problem. And I think the same goes for everybody else being a part of it. I guess, mainly it's the writing, right? Just, come on. If it had been, a bit stronger, more funny and such, you know what I mean? Just, yeah. But, overall, how can you not enjoy Gene Hackman in a comedy film, especially like this one? Come on. Again, he was not the problem, right? Just, yeah. So that's right, guys. To close off Gene Hackman Movie Week from 2004, 20th Century Fox's Welcome to Mooseport. Yes, Welcome to Mooseport. Oh boy, yeah, again, not a very fitting final movie for Gene Hackman's, but still, And for me to review this and being a part of Gene Hackman Movie Week, you get the drill. Yeah, so, yeah, Welcome to Mooseport. It's a very interesting movie, I should say. It may not be really the funniest comedy film that we have seen, especially, not only having Gene Hackman, and, he had been no stranger to doing some comedy films, like, well, I can think of, say, Get Shorty and The Birdcage, yeah. But, yeah, I think Welcome to Mooseport, for me, it's okay. It is what it is. The film itself, and again, despite this being Gene Hackman's final film, it had bad luck, but still. And the fact that, Gene Hackman, he got to co-star alongside with Ray Romano, and I'm pretty sure that, yeah, especially as of now, what a privilege it was for Ray Romano to co-star alongside with a great actor like Gene Hackman. Right? Just, yeah. And not to mention that Welcome to Mooseport, and I'm doing a little bit of background, not to mention that Welcome to Mooseport was, in fact, Ray Romano's first live-action feature film. Now, granted, and before this, he had already done another theatrical film, but it was animated. And I think we all know what that is. Also from 20th Century Fox. Yes. And fun fact, Ray Romano stated that when he told Gene Hackman that this was his first movie, and I'm pretty sure he did tell him that, yeah, live-action feature film, Gene Hackman's response was, holy shit, but in a humorous way, of course, yeah. And by the way, before Gene Hackman was cast as, whom he plays in this movie, Dustin Hoffman was considered to play the role that Gene Hackman would play, but he bowed, if I'm saying it right, bowed out of the film, if that's the correct way of saying it, for months ago and such, before, filming began, and so thus, Gene Hackman, he was signed on to do the movie, and yeah, again, despite this being his last movie, not the greatest, but still, again, he was not the problem, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think that, and with the first things I have to say about this movie, because, how I felt about it, again, it is what it is. I thought it was not that bad. I did get a few laughs and chuckles, because I think that this movie did pretty good delivering some pretty good funny moments. I mean, come on. How can we not laugh at something hilarious in a bad comedy like this? There's always bound to be at least, like, what, one or two hilarious moments in a comedy film like this one? You know, just, yeah. It's like, I can think of, best example, Airplane 2, Striker. If you know that joke, you know. Come on, that's funny. Yeah. And everybody else that was a part of this movie, aside from Romano and Hackman, I thought they were pretty good too. Where the story was going, I understood completely the plot and the story that this movie was taking, sorry. You know, this movie, it tried its best. I know, and don't we as well, you know, if only, you know, this could have been a heck of a lot better. And again, this being Romano's first live-action feature film, and this being Hackman's final film. So, yeah, but again, unfortunate that this movie had bad luck and such, but hey, there's no doubt that there are those like me that don't have a problem with this, yeah. And again, now that I've finally seen this movie, and I'm reviewing it now, again, I rest my case and make it very clear that, yeah, I had not a single problem with this movie while watching it, yeah. But just overall, welcome to Mooseport. Again, it is what it is, may not be the best, and so on, but I thought it was okay. I liked it some, but yeah. Alright, so, as always, for me, read the description / the story. To recover from a vicious divorce, former U.S. President Monroe Cole, I think I'm pronouncing the last name right, retires to his vacation home in sleepy Mooseport, Maine. When the local town council approaches him to run for mayor in the upcoming election, Cole agrees as he campaigns against his rival, Handy Harrison, the owner of the local hardware store. Cole comes to learn that well-oiled, political, if I'm saying that right, political manifestations have no place in a small town with a friendly populace. Yeah. All right, so, with that out of the way, reading the description / the story, on to the movie itself. Yeah, getting into it, yeah. Well, because, yeah, again, Monroe Cole, being played by the late legendary Gene Hackman, you know, who, again, coming out of a, you know, escaping from a divorce and such, not to mention his now soon-to-be ex-wife is, you know, taking so much from him. You know, the house, like, in Baltimore, millions of dollars and bunch of other stuff that he's lost, just, yeah. But not to mention that, well, you know, because he's coming back to Mooseport, everybody's there to welcome him, and, one of the other main characters, yep, right next to Hackman, Ray Romano himself playing Handy Harrison, and, you know, the townspeople of Mooseport putting up a sign welcoming the president home, and, yeah, Handy Harrison, who runs this hardware store, and we see his dog, Plunger, yeah, Plunger, and there's a few times where we would see another pet of Handy's being a moose. Well, and thus, you know, hey, Mooseport, and we have a moose, yeah, and the moose's name is Bruce. Yeah, Bruce didn't have that much of a big part in this movie. In fact, he's mainly there at the start of the film, and that's pretty much the last we see of him, so much for Bruce, but anyways. Well, and again, because hence the title Mooseport! Like, but anyways. And some of the other characters, actually those that, work at the hardware store, well, because, there's, Irma, being played by June Squibe, if I'm getting her last name right. I know her, of course. She's a great actress, and she's done so much. There's Martha, being played by Jackie Richardson, and there's Mandy, being played by Reagan Pasternak, if I'm pronouncing her last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. And at times in this movie, Mandy seems to have a crush on Handy, but yeah. But, however, Handy is in a relationship. His girlfriend, who is a veterinarian and such, Sally Manis, I think, yeah, I'm saying her last name right, being played by Maura Tyranny, if I'm saying that right too. Yeah, and, well, because, you know, again, with the president showing up, and, well, some of the higher-ups and such at Mooseport, well, because, like, there's Morris Gutman, being played by the late Wayne Robinson, Stu, being played by John Rothman, and, yeah, and some of the others, because, they at one point, approach, the president, and when he comes back home and such, they approach him, asking him to be their 23rd mayor, and a mentioning of their last mayor who had sadly passed away, and yeah. And some of the higher-ups, like, you know, that work for the president, well, there's most notably Grace Sutherland, being played by Marisa Gay Harden, and there's also Bullard, I think I'm saying that right, being played by good old Fred Savage. And another one that we would see very later on in the film, he shows up later. I'll mention him when we get there. But yeah, yeah, and so, you know, and when the president comes back, you know, and like, you know, the first encounters that Cole and Harrison have, their first encounter, I should say, well, because kind of awkward, especially for Handy, because Cole came into the bathroom and noticed, yeah, Handy being there, because, well, he was fixing the toilet, and just an awkward first encounter, and yeah, and also we learned that there's a lot of proposals and such for the president, like, you know, commercials and stuff like that. Even a proposal for a you know, building. We see a model of it, the presidential library, that was designed by that being Izuki Nami. Yeah, I think I'm saying the full name right. Being played by Dennis Akiyama. I know I've seen him before. Yeah, he's a pretty good actor. Yeah, I've seen him before. And poor Izuki, because at times and very later on in the film, because budget cuts for the president, and unfortunately the model and the idea and pitch for the presidential library goes down, like removing, you know, pieces of the model, you know, and poor Izuki, because this was his masterpiece, but to cut down, and the pieces of the model just, yeah. But again, because, you know, the mentioning of the budget cuts and stuff like that, the millions of dollars that the president has, you know, not to mention because what his soon-to-be ex-wife is doing. So, yeah. Yeah, and by the way, to go ahead and mention the president's ex-wife, technically, yeah, to say, Charlotte Cole, being played by good old Christine Baranski. Yeah, great actress, great person. She's done so much. I can think of most notably, say, The Birdcage, which, by the way, that's, you know, that was another film that she and Hackman were in. And also, Leonard Hofstadter's mother from The Big Bang Theory. She was in The Addams Family Values. So much more. We know her and we love her. So, yeah. And of course, I don't think she disappoints in this movie. Yeah. But also, after Handy finished his business at the president's house and such, you know, his vacation house at Mooseport, well, I think, as I recall, like, yeah, he was, like, given, like, $17 million or something, a mentioning of that, and, well, After that, because, and even when he mentions it to, Sally, and, he, is thinking of getting a new truck, but, to Sally, yeah, she doesn't like the sound of it, because, should he be thinking of something else than, getting a new truck? And by the way, because we learned that, Handy and Sally, they've been together for about 6 years now. And not once did Handy pop the question. But, very later on in the film, we learn, and when, Handy finally comes out, and, why he never did pop the question until very later on. But anyways. Yeah, so Sally being a bit disappointed. And also, a friend of Sally's, because, working at the vet too, Dina being played by Jessica Holmes. And to name some of the other characters, just to go ahead and get out of the way, because, there's Dyer being played by Carl Pruner, there's Cloud being played by David Massaneven, if I'm pronouncing that right, there's Bob being played by Paul Bates, and there's Kent being played by Philip Williams, Ruben being played by Jim Feather, Harv being played by Ed Fedling? Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. Laura Smith being played by Natalie Brown, local reporter Chip being played by Paul McGuire, and local reporter Heather being played by, Heather Allen. Yeah, Allen. And J.C. Kenny, he is the local reporter J.C., he's local reporter JC, sorry. And Fox newscaster Jane being played by Diana Platts. Fox newscaster Bill being played by Peter Snyder. Local news anchor Daryl being played by Dan Durain. Local news anchor Lee being played by Lee Taylor. And councilwoman being played by Pat Moffat. Jim, just named Jim, being played by James Barrett. Rebecca being played by Colleen Reynolds, and Clay being played by William Lynn, and I'll get to the rest of the characters later as I proceed with the movie, but yeah. Like I said, Sally not liking what Handy said about getting a new truck and such, when, something that she had been waiting and wanting Handy to do, but also, and to speed things up because, again, because with the president's return, and there's a party going on for his return and such, and not to mention Handy and Sally were supposed to go together being at this party. Handy doesn't show up. He's late, and only Sally is there. And, and like I said, those at Mooseport, them turning to President Monroe, asking and proposing to him to be their next 23rd mayor, that whole thing, and, he's not sure about it at first, but even when, he encounters Sally, and, he starts to find Sally attractive and such, and as for Sally, well, I don't know, because, it seems like it at first for her, but very later on, so, not to mention, because, we learn a little later that Handy, he, was, registering himself, to try and run for mayor too, have him be put on the list for maybe possibly he can be mayor of Mooseport. He's not really sure, and doubts that more than likely that he would become mayor and such. Again, Monroe starting to have some interest in Sally, not to mention that it was mentioned by her that when the president was arriving in his private jet, it caused another flight to be postponed for him and his private jet to land, and that was basically a helicopter transferring a donkey, to the vet, and unbeknownst to Monroe, nothing intentional, but and Monroe offers Sally a date, to discuss business and such. That's basically what it is, but and unbeknownst to Handy, and even when, the next time that Monroe would come, face to face with Handy at his hardware store, because the conversation that they would have about about Handy running for president, and Handy, even though he registered himself, putting his name in, like, he's not really interested, but when he would learn, and even when Grace discovers that Monroe is trying to make a move on Handy's girlfriend. Yeah, Grace discovers this, and and Handy being surprised by this and so on, and Monroe, well, he didn't even know at first that he was making a move on his competitor for mayor, his competitor's girlfriend and such. And Handy does not like this, and that's when he decides that he is still going to have him be, voted and such for mayor, all because of Sally. Yeah, all because of her. And Monroe at first thinking that, if he's gone mental or something, just, And it's nice to see that Handy's fellow hardware co-workers, they root for him and such, and they think he's got this. Sally, not that much, because how upset she is towards Handy, well, even more moments between Sally and Handy, it just, as time goes on in the movie, it gets out of hand and such, and yeah, and even there's one moment where Handy, brought up about and when Sally was preparing herself for this date with the president, he was complaining to Sally about the color of her undies, and just, oh my gosh, why would you bring that up? I mean, for what he said, I mean, okay, but still, not a good, smart idea, bright idea, I should say. And yeah, because, Sally proceeding on with this date and meeting with Monroe and the business that they discuss, or so it is, and even there's a moment where Monroe, and when he talks with his workers, that try to put Handy down and such, and try to ruin him. And even there's a moment where Grace calls up the hardware store, letting them know to go to this restaurant and such, and to hand out flyers and such, that whole thing. And little does Handy know what he and the others are going to witness and see at the restaurant. And yeah, well, yeah, because what happens next is when they show up, and bad time to be there, and even when he hands a flyer to Monroe and Sally, there's something underneath a flyer, this package and such, and it turns out to be a piece of undies, and just, oh my gosh, good lord. And yeah, right there, it still gets worse for, Handy, and making a bad, impression on Sally and such, and just, yeah. And even Handy being told that he's making a fool out of himself, Sally tells him that. And also, there are times in this movie where Sally would kind of push or nudge Handy, and to Handy, she's very strong, but she denies that. Yeah, I mean, who says a woman can't be strong with whatever what they do and such? It's you get what I'm saying, but she denies it, but anyways. Yeah, and still to speed things up, yeah, now to go ahead and mention him now, because he steps in just a little later, and when he shows up at Mooseport, another right-hand person working with President Monroe, Burt Landon, if I'm saying the last name right, yeah, played by the late legendary Rip Torn. Yep. And, well, because, the conversation that Burt gives to the president, and this is after, well, the president kind of embarrassed himself after, their so-called date, him and Sally, driving her back to her house, and even he tried to go give her a kiss and such, but, yeah, but she avoided it and, shook hands, and that was very embarrassing for poor President Monroe. And still, to speed things up, because, well, it was mentioned earlier that it was suggested to both Handy and Monroe that maybe they should have a debate. And that's what ultimately happens. In the first debate they have, well, let's just say it doesn't go too pretty well. Like, even when, like, say, they start off doing rock, paper, scissors, and Handy loses the rock, paper, scissors thing to Monroe. And when it comes down to questions, basically, questions on, what they would do in a specific situation, such in Mooseport, from Monroe and Handy, their response and what they would do as mayor. And the first time, and when it's Handy's turn, he thinks what Monroe says is pretty good, and he has nothing else to say. But when it comes to the second question, after Monroe's done with what he says, making a good speech and such, well, Handy, he asks for more details on the situation and such, and yeah. And, at one point, Mandy, one of the workers at the hardware store, asking why. And she basically started it with this, and where it would go next. Mandy asking, not Monroe, Mandy asking Handy, if Sally is seeing the president and if he's single, available. And from there on, because, what Handy says and when, pointing out to Sally, it just gets out of hand. And even the press, like those taking pictures, like some of them at times turning to Sally, asking her, if she's dating the president and so on. Just, how slowly but surely throughout this film, it just gets worse and out of hand, and especially the relationship between Sally and Handy. Also, not to mention that, Charlotte, whom we saw earlier, because, she was on the phone at one point with her soon-to-be ex-husband, because of what she was doing and, just ruining him pretty much, and with the millions of dollars and taking everything that he had and such, at one point, she does arrive at Mooseport, and she's rooting for Handy. And Monroe, by that point, he is fed up, and he pins this on Handy, thinking that he had something to do with this, having her come to Mooseport and such. There was even a moment where they, Monroe asked her if they can have a private talk in Handy's hardware store, and at one point, Monroe goes for a knife, and we see that he was about to kill her and such, and, she's panicking. Handy and Martha, they panic too, but thankfully, that was a daydream that Monroe had. He didn't do it, and thank goodness he didn't, because that, of course, would have turned out really ugly and on his part. So, yeah, that was pretty funny. I think some movies, they're quite good at that, where something happens, but thankfully, boom, it was, just a daydream and such. I can think of, say, in Disney and Pixar's Up, where Carl has Russell being, hanged outside, like he's flying or something, but he accidentally drops him. That part, take that as an example. Or I hate to bring this up, but I guess it's kind of true. The whole fight sequence in the final Twilight film, but it all turned out to be a daydream and such. I hate to bring it up, but it's true. Just, you get what I'm saying, and there are your examples. But I think most notably, my point being is that in comedy films, where they do something like that, most of the time they're pretty funny. And I think this in Mooseport, I think that was pretty good. So, yeah. Anyways. So, again, Monroe, he's pissed off towards Handy, thinking that Handy had something to do with bringing in Charlotte, but no. And Handy has Monroe, have them each do a fair fight. And, them playing some golf. Yeah, because each Handy and Monroe, they're quite good at golf. And, that's what happens. Yeah, and them playing golf, and not to mention that, even when Charlotte is present, she has, the president's men be, right there, being seen, because apparently they've been a lending hand towards the president with the golf ball, but not this time. And, yeah, them playing golf and such, doesn't go that well, especially for Monroe, and the 15 shots and all that, the golf talk and just, the points and all that, just, And also, more on Grace, because, yeah, the more we get to know her, and the development of her character, well, and how she feels towards President Monroe. Not to mention, there is one moment where her and Sally share a scene together, and when, Grace does bring it up to Sally about both Monroe and Handy playing golf and such, and this being a part of them being voted and the debate and such of whom one of them is going to be the next 23rd mayor of Mooseport, all because of her, especially with golfing. Yeah, and again, the scene that they share together, the only scene they share together, and at a certain point, they start to get really drunk and they play some golf of their own, and with glass bottles, it was pretty funny, yeah. But again, how golfing goes between Monroe and Handy, yeah, doesn't go that well, especially for Monroe, ultimately, yeah. And still, to speed things up, because, and how far the debate has come, and, even at a certain point, only 2 days left, and Monroe trying to make, Handy, look bad and such, in the public, and so on, and, even there's a moment where, Monroe decides that, he will step down being mayor, and, have the position of mayor be given to Handy and such for a specific reason, and as he explains, and the direction he takes this, and even Bert and Bullard, they understand, and yeah, they like this, and more on Bullard, Fred Savage, because he's not the very smart, bright one of those that work for President Monroe. And even a few times where Monroe asks Bullard to leave the room. And even there's one moment where he even asks 2 of his security guards to break his leg. But he was joking. Even shouting at them, telling him that he was joking. Like, he wasn't being for real. For crying out loud, don't act like... He actually wouldn't want to cause physical harm towards Bullard, even though he's not the brightest, of those that work for him. But, yeah. Anyways... And yeah, and more on Handy and Sally, because again, how slowly but surely their relationship is going downhill, even because they share a house together, and even when we would see at times Handy getting the, spare key and such, the key that he would use to get in the house, being placed in a statued frog. But later on, and when he tries to go and talk to Sally one evening, the key is not there in the frog, and he's trying to get Sally's attention, and yeah, he's failing. And even when Sally, she opens her bedroom window and tosses down the package that had those undies he, lended to her at the restaurant, just, good lord. Yeah. And Ray Romano, because his character Handy, what he tries to say to Sally, he's not doing that good, but, he's trying his best, but, yeah. At first, bad luck for him, anyways. But, yeah, and still, to speed things up, because, yeah, the next debate that they have, and, this is where it seems to be positive at first, and, after another rock, paper, scissors thing, that's when, actually, no, because, I almost forgot, because, Handy requests, them not doing rock, paper, scissors, and instead just, he wanted to make a statement. And, well, coincidentally, so did President Monroe. And that's what happens, because, he apologizes to Sally, and if she's watching this, which she is, and, it shouldn't be about, his feelings towards Sally, and with him being, the reason of being voted for mayor about the people in the town of Mooseport doing the right thing and helping them out and such, and, all that. And when it comes to Monroe, the statement he makes, pretty good, and, you know, feeling that, Handy would make a pretty good mayor and such, and yeah, just overall, it goes pretty well between both of them, and even Bert, because, like, I think, yeah, calling out Handy, but, you know, to himself, you know, son of a bitch, like, and when they go backstage, and, after they make those statements, and, by the way, because, the announcer, like the guy hosting this debate, well, that being, yeah, right here, and I didn't realize that he was uncredited. Huh. The debate moderator, sorry. Avery Hightower, being played by the late good old Edward Herman. Yeah, because, again, him being the debate moderator, and even what he says, and after, you know, the statements that each of them made, Handy and Monroe, and they went backstage. Very positive political talks and such, you know. Good one, that, and how the debate moderator explains it. Yeah, and I would think so too, yeah. But then, yeah, this was Monroe's doing, where, you know, he tries to, you know, make it look bad towards Handy, like, and even after they got along and they made good statements, yeah, just going after Handy and making it look like, I guess, like Handy's attacking him or something, and, you know, from some of Monroe's, men, and even those that are by Handy's side, you know, his fellow co-workers at the hardware store, coming in and stopping this brawl, well, and, you know, it can be seen backstage and causing, you know, part of the stage to be, you know, torn off, you know, the banner and so on, is, yeah. And it does leave a bad impression on Monroe and such, I mean, with what happened, and, yeah, poor Monroe still. And also, to talk more about some of the other characters, because, yeah, because Bob, I didn't talk about Bob that much, and, yeah, Bob being, yeah, one of the other, co-workers of hardware store and such, yeah, like, he was pretty interesting, and, you know, and most notably when, he tried to help out Handy the first time this debate happened, and the first time, you know, they did rock, paper, scissors, Bob, was signaling Handy, you know, to go for scissors, and by going for scissors, and, well, Handy went for scissors, Monroe went for a rock, yeah, Handy lost, and, yeah, and next time Bob knew not to, you know, recommend scissors to Handy and such. Also, Harv, yeah. And at the start of the movie, Harv, because the moments that we have of Harv, well, pretty much most of the time, like, he is running around the town of Mooseport, jogging, butt naked, almost. I mean, he's wearing shoes and socks. That's it. But Harv was interesting. And Reuben, being an older gentleman and being, you know, with some of those guys, you know, with Morris and Stu, you know, he sometimes shouts, and, you know, he was one of those that recommended, you know, having Monroe, you know, be voted and such for the 23rd mayor and such of Mooseport, and yeah, Reuben was pretty funny. He had his moments, too. Okay, but anyways, continuing with the movie, we're almost done. Yeah, we're nearly there, because, yeah, the moment that, like, there's, you know, what happens next, and there's a moment between, Handy and, Monroe, and this is where, you know what, things are cleared up, and, that, like, Sally being brought up, and Handy sharing to Monroe that, you know, Sally being very special, and most notably to him, and Monroe giving a little talk to Handy about, you know, relationships and such, and, you know, especially for Monroe, what he had been through, because, you know, his ex-wife, you know, just, yeah, and also the mentioning of what happened when they did golf, and, you know, getting Monroe laid off and such, and, well, even Monroe saying something positive, if he had not been president of the United States, would have been laid off, and so on, you know. And, again, this is where things are cleared up between Monroe and Handy, and, Monroe, you know, tells Handy that they should go and start to vote for each of them and such, them voting. And that's what they do. And little do we know what exactly they're, like, whom they're voting for, just, and also, even after that, a moment between Monroe and Grace. And by that point, if it's not obvious for anybody who watches this movie for the first time, but for me, yeah, because, how can you not? But it would depend, right? Where we learn that Grace Sutherland, who, for a long time had worked right alongside with the president, she has some feelings for Monroe. Yeah, and even Grace telling Monroe, and when they're out on a balcony and such, and because of outside of his vacation home, basically her telling him that, he used to be someone, and, with him being president and so on, and specific things that he used to do, that whole talk. And yeah, and even when Grace, gave Monroe a kiss, and, that wasn't a handshake, that was a kiss, and that whole thing. And yeah, and Grace, well, she was planning on resigning working for Monroe. And, well, even after that, and the talk that Grace gives to Monroe, the big day arrives for both Monroe and Handy on whom is going to officially become the 23rd mayor of Mooseport. And, well, it's Monroe. Yep, Monroe becomes the 23rd mayor, sorry, going from president to mayor of Mooseport. And Monroe, well, the speech that he gives, well, to put it this, because he says that, when voting, he didn't vote for Handy, despite the fact that, he had good encouragement and such, and had support that Handy would be a good mayor. He voted himself, but him now mayor, giving the position, passing it on to Handy, and now Handy becoming the 23rd mayor of Mooseport, but Handy making a speech, and he did the same thing like what Monroe did. He didn't vote for Monroe, he voted for himself. So now he gives the position of mayor back to Monroe, and thus Monroe officially becomes the 23rd mayor of Mooseport. Yeah. And one more moment that we get of Charlotte and what she says to Bullard, even grabbing him by one of his butt cheeks, just like, jeez Louise. And Monroe, he's wondering where Grace is, because, Grace, neither Grace or Sally, they didn't show up to the big event on whom was going to become mayor. Neither one. And yeah, Monroe is wondering where Grace is, and, we learn and see that Grace is making her way on an airplane and leaving Mooseport. But her flight has been delayed. And I think it's obvious, right? Because, if you couldn't immediately figure this out, Monroe stopped the flight that Grace was going to get on. Yeah, because he wants to talk to her, and, wanting to pursue a relationship with Grace, and yeah, not wanting her to leave and so on, and thus Monroe and Grace, they become a thing now, and yeah, it's great to see. And that's the last we see of them. Yep. And when we come back to Handy, because, well, early on and at his hardware store, and before the big event happened, and Bob was gonna go down there, well, Handy was basically Bob's ride, and, well, we saw that Handy had a engagement ring, and he was gonna plan on proposing to Sally, finally, and, well, he finally does so. He's trying to figure out what he's going to say, and even when twice he's interrupted by those that, congratulated him, and, because, and saying, telling them, how nice it was, giving Monroe the official position of mayor and such. even Ruben, like, what he had to say to Handy, just, it was pretty funny. And unfortunately, and even after Ruben interrupted Handy and such, kind of startled him, Handy accidentally lost the engagement ring, and it fell down a, sewer and such, and him trying to reach for it. And just so happens that Sally, being right outside with her dogs, I assume, the dogs that she's been looking out, from the vet and such, but yeah. And Handy does his best to explain that, he cares about her and, she's beautiful and stuff like that, and gave up, the position of being voted for mayor and such, giving that to Monroe because of her. He only cares about her, and rightfully so. And he did finally get the ring out of there, and well, it was all muddy and such, covered up in mud. And when he gets it out, like, yeah, it's dirty, but ultimately she accepts his proposal, and yeah, everything's all patched up officially between Sally and Handy. And it also shows that, yeah, at a certain point, like, yeah, she really had no interest in the mayor. Well, he was once the president, now the mayor of Mooseport, yeah. Yeah, again, great to see that things get patched up between Handy and Sally, and yeah, because more funny moments that they have, and when they walk back into their house, and once again, Sally, like, nudging him, and just, yeah, and again, like, how strong she is, but even though she denies it. And the final scene, well, because in the hardware store, everything is good as it should be, even Sally, showing off, like on a magazine and such, on what would be the perfect wedding dress, sharing it with, say, Irma and Martha. But however, they get an unexpected visit by Bert, yeah, Rip Torn, wanting to meet with Handy, offering him a position to be governor. And Handy, although he likes the offer and such, but he's happy where he is, in his hardware store, and most notably, with his girl. Yes, rightfully so, Handy. But before Bert left, right before he walked off the door, and the last thing in the movie is, well, yeah, Handy asking Bert, if he were to take the position of governor, does that mean that, him as governor would give orders and such to the mayor, what he says to Bert, and Bert tells them, like, yes, and it seemed like Handy wanted to do so, but yeah, ultimately, and I think it's obvious he doesn't, especially Sally, because, yeah, like, don't push it, just, yeah, you're good where you are, Handy, just, yeah, drop it, yeah, the offer of being governor, yeah, and that's how the movie ends, yeah, a pretty funny way for the movie to end off, in my opinion, so, yeah, but, yeah, welcome to Mooseport. Again, it may not be the best comedy film to feature, say, Ray Romano and Gene Hackman, and again, this being Gene Hackman's final feature film, yeah, but again, Gene Hackman, he's Gene Hackman, and he was no disappointment in Welcome to Mooseport. Again, he was not the problem, and I think the same goes for most of the cast, and come on, Ray Romano, he was doing his best. We know he's a hilarious guy, and he's good at doing comedy. I'm sure, though, yeah, he tried his very best. And again, like I said, I have no doubt that, especially as of now, what an opportunity it was for Romano to star alongside with the great Gene Hackman, without a doubt. Yeah. But yeah, from beginning to end, Welcome to Mooseport, the story, the cast of characters, the funny moments, the emotional moments, moments that you didn't see happening nor coming in this movie, and with golf being in this film, and the whole thing of Handy and Monroe going at it against one another on whom would become the 23rd mayor of Mooseport, just, yeah. And the music and score, not bad. Yeah. Overall, Welcome to Mooseport, it's okay, at least that's my opinion. And it is what it is. Overall, just bad luck for this comedy, and again, this being Romano's first live-action feature film, and this being Gene Hackman's final feature film, just, yeah. And I'm giving Welcome to Mooseport, yeah, I mean, again, I didn't hate it, like, not once in my review did I say anything negative and such, and, you know, being very honest, you know, it's okay, it is what it is, you know, in my opinion, that is. Just, yeah. But overall, I'm giving Welcome to Mooseport, yeah, why not, 6 out of 10 stars. Yes, 6 out of 10 stars for Welcome to Mooseport. I see 6 out of 10 still being good. You know, I've established this before. That's just me, but yeah. But yeah, again, 6 out of 10 for Welcome to Mooseport. It is what it is. It's okay. It's not the best comedy film for, you know, to star both great talents, you know, Romano and Hackman. You get the point. Yeah. And what about you guys? What did you think of Welcome to Mooseport itself? Any of you, like me, that thought this was funny, okay, and it's fine for what it is, you know? You know, did any of you get to see this in theaters, or when it came out on DVD, watching it on digital? You know, and do you think that Gene Hackman, Ray Romano, Marcia Gay Harden, everybody else that was a part of this film, do you think they all did fine? What were some of your favorite funny moments? Did you get any good laughs, chuckles from this movie? Just, yeah. Overall, what do you think of Welcome to Mooseport itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Welcome to Mooseport. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And with that, Gene Hackman Movie Week, in memory / in tribute of Gene Hackman, you know, has come to a close. Yeah, this was fun. Doing this, and again, in memory / in tribute to the late legendary actor Gene Hackman. Just, yeah. The films that I've reviewed that star / feature Hackman, yeah, mainly the first 3 that I reviewed. No hard feelings to Welcome to Mooseport, but still, you know, and I think, you know, with Welcome to Mooseport, it seemed fitting, and again, seeing as how this was Hackman's last feature film, so, you know, it seemed acceptable, but yeah, especially the first 3 films that I reviewed, yeah, they were pretty good, but yeah, again, no hard feelings to Welcome to Mooseport, but yeah, and yeah, and, you know, I look forward to, you know, reviewing more films that star / feature Hackman. Yes, Gene Hackman himself, may he rest in peace. What a legendary actor he was, and the legacy that he will leave off, without a doubt. So again, thank you very much for watching, take care, and peace out.